What would happen to Earth if all humanities went extinct all of a sudden? Deep within Guatemala's rainforest sits one of the most famous remnants of the Maya civilization, a roughly 2000-year-old citadel turned to ruins called Tikal. If you ever went hiking through the surrounding region, you would discover something fascinating along the way. Once you'd be walking through a really dense rainforest, and then at the next moment you would be walking on top of hills. An archaeologist could give the reason. It is because you are walking over pyramids and cities that haven't been excavated. We know about the sites like Tikal because humans have gone to great efforts to dig up and restore the remains. A view at the Tikal's rainforest allows us a glimpse of what our planet could look like if humans suddenly stop existing. Lately, the idea has been especially pertinent as the global COVID-19 pandemic has kept people inside, and this has given a chance to wild animals to return to our quieter urban environments, giving us a sense of what life might look like if we retreated further into the background. And this brings us to today's question: what would happen to our planet, our cities, industries and nature if humans disappeared? For the purpose of this video, let's choose a city like London where the most dramatic and immediate changes would unfold. Thanks to a sudden lack of human maintenance, without people to run pumps that divert rainfall and rising groundwater, the subways of the huge sprawling city would be flooded within hours. Well, if you ask how long it would take, engineers estimate that it would take around 36 hours only for the subways to flood completely. Lacking human oversight, glitches in the oil refineries and nuclear plants would go unchecked, likely resulting in massive fire, nuclear explosions and devastating nuclear fallouts. Unsupervised dams on rivers would burst and explode and flood every area nearby. In the wake of our demise, we would leave behind mountains of waste, much of it plastic, which would likely persist for thousands of years, with effects on wildlife that we are only now beginning to understand. Meanwhile, petroleum waste that spills or seeps into the ground at industrial sites and factories would be broken down and reused by microbes and plants, which would probably take a few decades. Persistent organic pollutants. These are human-made chemicals such as PCBs that currently can't be broken down in nature, and this would take much longer. While the polluting legacy unfolds, water running underground in cities would corrode the metal structures that hold up streets and bridges above the subterranean transport systems, and whole avenues would collapse, transform suddenly into mid-city rivers. Over the next few years, seeds of trees carried over by the wind or excreted by overflying birds would develop into trees that continue the gradual dismemberment of pavements and roads. There would be no one to stop fires caused by failures in electrical circuits, and over hundreds of years, as buildings are subjected to sustained damage from erosion and fire, they would degrade. However, it would be a swift recovery of insects as the application of pesticides and other chemicals ceases with humanity's demise. Once the insects are doing better, the plants are going to do much better, and then the birds. Surrounding habitats, plant communities, soils, waterways and oceans will recover, free from the far-reaching influence that chemicals have on the ecosystems today. That, in turn, will encourage more wildlife to move in and take up residence. This transition will precipitate an increase in biodiversity on a global scale. If we did suddenly disappear from the picture, it would still take millions of years for the planet to recover from what we have done to the planet over the past hundreds of years. Well, eventually, the earth may become lush and green and more diverse, but we can't dismiss the effect of climate change, which is arguably humanity's most indelible impact on the planet. If there are explosions at industrial plants or oil or gas wellheads that continue to burn long after we are all gone, huge amounts of heat-trapping carbon dioxide would continue to be discharged into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide doesn't stay suspended in the atmosphere forever. Our oceans play an essential role in absorbing vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the air. But still, there are limits to how much of it the ocean can take up without its own waters acidifying to unhealthy levels, potentially a detriment to thousands of marine species. The sea is not simply a bottomless carbon sink what it's often thought of to be. And as it stands, current level of CO2 in our atmosphere will take thousands of years to be fully removed from the atmosphere. And if the sea reaches its cap and more greenhouse gases stay suspended up in the atmosphere, the resulting continuous warming will lead to further melting of the polar ice caps and the release of even more greenhouse gases from the softening permafrost. This will cycle into an ongoing climate-altering feedback loop. All this means that we can confidently assume that the climate's change impacts will last long even after we leave. But there is still hope. During the Jurassic period, the atmosphere had 5 times more carbon dioxide. Well, is there any point in pondering what our planet will look like without us? On one hand, we might take comfort in the knowledge that free of people, our planet would ultimately be fine. In fact, it would ultimately thrive. But taking a glimpse at the imagined future might also prompt us to be more mindful of our actions in a bid to preserve our own spot on the planet. What if nature is able to heal a lot of the scars that we have placed on this planet and nature beautifully comes back? Then to think, is there possibly a way to add ourselves back into this picture of a restored earth? If you like the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment in both YouTube and Facebook. The channel needs your support to grow. Thank you.